Hello everyone. Good evening. I am Alisha Verma on behalf of Vitasta Publishing, and today we will be talking about the impact of screens and digital media on children's lives and their mental health. To discuss this topic, I have with me Dr. Ashok Pandey. He is the director of Alcon Public and International Schools, former chairperson NPSC, and a renowned educationist who has been serving in this field for more than 30 years. Welcome, sir. Hello, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for your very kind introduction and taking me on your show. I'm looking forward to some very engaging and enlightening discussions with you and with Dr. Malvika if she can join.
Yes, here I would like to note that Dr. Malavika Kapur, because of some technological glitches, there is some issue, but she'll be joining us soon. She is the author of the book Digital Demon, Parents Beware.
Yeah,
But so,
here it is.
yes, here it is.
Alicia, here is the book.
Yes, here are her copies of the book Parents Beware of the Digital Demon by Malvika Kapoor. She will be shortly joining us. You have read the book, you have reviewed the book. Tell us a bit about it. How did you
Oh,
find it?
this two or three things are very, very striking, Alicia, about this book.
Yeah,
First is that this book has come at the right time, right?
yeah,
I'm like, what has happened this whole pandemic of 1 year or less than 1 year. I
yes,
mean, it has, of course, put us into a lot of problems. The health, economy, education, everything has gone haywire and topsy-turvy. But at the
yeah,
same time, what it has also proved is that the human beings have incredible capacity to come out something amazing, you see.
yeah,
And the only thing is that if we put our minds together with vigor and energy, and we know what exactly the nature of problem is, I think solutions are no more unsolvable, you see.
yeah,
And so similarly, producing a book within this period, taking into consideration the past, the present, and the future, I think it is an amazing accomplishment by Dr. Malvika. And
yes,
coming to the very topic, the digital demon, I mean, digital world. I mean, the
yeah,
children who are born today, or even let us say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years old, I mean, we are into an era where the technology is advancing every day. The
yeah,
yesterday's technology is old today, and it will
yeah,
be obsolete tomorrow, right? And
yes,
there is a very massive adoption of new technology,
yeah,
and therefore technology seems to be continuing to influence our lives. And
yes,
therefore, as I was sharing with you before the program, that it has become a demigod for all of us. I
yes,
mean, and
yes,
we just cannot think about our lives going on without technology. But then here is one author, one
yes,
psychologist, and one conscience keeper, let us say like Dr.
yeah,
Malvika Kapoor, that
yes,
she's saying that, no, hey, come on, give a pause, you see, and
yeah,
just think about it. That in
yes,
this bright pathway, are there some pitfalls, and
yes,
should we be beware of that? Should we be careful of that? Okay, and
yes,
particularly with the young children, because on
yeah,
one hand we have said that even if it comes to education, it just cannot continue, and the learning losses will be massive if we do not
yes,
reach out to them at least through technology. And on the
yes,
other hand, being on a screen all the time, the other dark alleys of the cyber world, you know and
yes,
there are so many issues, the relationship issues, the aggression, the isolation,
yeah,
becoming self-centeredness, all those issues. And I think
yes,
this book deals with all of them based on
yes.
research or experience of dealing with cases like this. I think it is a good read, and I recommend this book very, very strongly.
Yes. So, what I specifically want to ask you at this point is I was reading the book and I was struck by the case studies and the way they presented themselves, how the children were affected by anxiety, depression, ADHD, autism. As an educationist, I want to ask you, what has been your journey in relation to this particular aspect for the last, say, 30 years? How have you seen is has it, increased? Has it become more into the mainstream? How do you see it? Because you are every day in the ground amongst children. How do you see screens doing that?
Yeah. Alisha, I think this is something very interesting that you have asked me. You look, the children's health, their well-being, and the mental health, and the
Yeah,
onslaught of anxiety, and other uncertainties in their life, they were creeping into our society, and particularly in the lives of the children, even when technology was not that influencing factor. Okay,
yes,
because those were coming because of the societal changes that are taking place. So
yeah,
what were the societal changes? Of course, shrinking of our family size, which
yeah,
we glamorize as saying that nuclear families, as if nuclear families are the model of family. It's
yeah,
not like that, in my opinion. Joint
yeah,
families have their own values and benefits for the young children, and
yes,
also the societal pressure on the children to do well.
yeah,
And doing well has not been defined well, unfortunately, because
yes,
doing well always meant, and it still continues to be meant, that you must do well in your examination. So our examination system is focusing, our education system is focusing on examination, and doing well is a proxy for high percentage of marks. But
yeah,
that is not something what doing well really means. And
yeah,
therefore, we have not given the alternatives. We don't tell children that, hey, come on, it's fine. Even if you get less marks, there are other pathways to succeed in life. You can make contribution. There are incredible amount of contributions that you can make to the society. You volunteer, you do this, you do that, you play, you dance, and I mean, do anything, you see.
yeah,
And the variety of options that are available, but somehow we confine everything to this examination. So that has brought another layer of stress. Okay,
yeah,
and the third layer of stress, of course, comes in the society, is because the one set of society which is living in plenty of opportunities and affluence,
yes,
another
yes,
set of children are living in paucity. So
yes,
this inequality, and both of them have their own DNA of anxieties. Okay,
yeah,
so it has been contributed to that. And of course, if you take the 5 years or 10 years or present, there's a digital exposure,
yeah,
and gluing to the cyber world, gluing to the internet or TV, that has also added to it. So this is my understanding of what exactly is happening with the children. And referring to this book, I think this has been analyzed very beautifully, in my opinion, for
yeah,
each group, 0 to 4 and 4 to 10, and then 10 and above, and with the case studies as you were saying. And then
yeah,
there is a prescription that as
yeah,
to what parents and educators can do to mitigate the
yes.
situation.
Yes, definitely. I am really glad that you have put together all these points because I'm going to keep touching them throughout our conversation. Your
Okay.
definition when you said that, of doing well, when we talk about this particular portion, there seems to be, it seems to be affecting the mental health, and there seem to be three stakeholders who are kind of responsible or who are impacted by this situation that the children face: the doctors, mental health practitioners, of course, then there are teachers, and then there are parents, right? uh, what do you think is the ideal situation of how things should be taken care of amongst these three stakeholders? Who should be responsible for what and how much? And I want to know what is the real on ground situation regarding this, especially their mental health, because of their not because of their perceived notions of doing well. And plus, I will also add the point of screens here because of
Yeah.
screens.
So fine. Yeah, that's great. So you see, I think we will keep the doctors and healthcare professionals a little away, because
Okay.
they will come at a place where what we present to them and when we approach to them for their health and attention and things like that, I think the primary responsibility of the young children is on
Yeah.
the parents. And
Okay.
that is why Dr. Malavika Kapur, parental education, she has stressed throughout
Yeah.
her book. So
Yeah.
ultimately, let me tell you, I mean, who can deny that the parents are responsible for the well-being of their children, right?
Yes.
So this is
Yes.
number one. And of course, if you want to put the entire society and the system and the community, we can say that. And at one stage, even the educators will also enter into that. So that
Yes.
is why my suggestion is that the health and well-being and the physical health particularly, so
Yeah.
if at the early age the physical health is taken care of,
Yeah.
and then they slowly move, and when they go to school, then that beautiful relationship between the school and home, and
Yeah.
then they have to complement each other, right?
Yeah.
So when children move out of home and then go to a school and start mingling with their peer, then the social relationship comes, okay? And
Yes.
then the values of sharing and values of caring, being kind, being careful and sensitive to each other.
Yeah.
So the nuances of emotional health will begin from there.
Yeah.
Now, if at that early stage we can give them support, at that
Yeah.
early stage we start building in them that they are beautiful creatures, they are valued, they are given importance, they are listened to. I mean, the tragedy
Yes.
with our young children is that there is nobody to listen to them. The parents don't have time, right?
Yeah.
So even sitting with them and listening to them, I mean, we have stories and real cases, Alicia. The parents, they are out on work, and when they come in the evening, even then they don't have time for their children. So they
Yes.
spend even their home time on mobile or TV or other conversations and things like that. And children just keep waiting. When will their turn come when they can go to their parents and ask them questions and tell them the stories that they have brought from the school, right? So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to tell you is that the children need to be given that emotional support and
Yeah.
security. I think the emotions, managing emotions, and emotional quotient with physical and mental and emotional, I think that will make the bedrock for
Yeah.
those children to grow, and then they will be in a position to cope up with some adversities also. What is the genesis of a mental problem, mental health problem? I'm not a doctor, so I'm not using the clinical medicinal hardcore jargon for that, but I understand with that is that how do we cope up with an adversity? You see,
Yeah.
so we have to teach our children that the failure is possible and
Yeah.
failure is to be embraced, right? Okay,
Yes.
you celebrate your success, but failure is not the end of life. So
Yeah.
so so your understanding of the failure, managing of the failure, will decide what is going to be the status of your mental health.
Yeah.
So that is my primary emphasis, that children should not be given undue pressure about
Yes.
doing well, quote unquote, on the standards fixed by somebody else, on
Yeah.
the comparisons with your siblings or your relationships or some
Yeah.
other alien examples that we keep bringing to them all the time.
Uh, you have made a very well point. From there, I'll draw an observation and I would like your views on that.
Yeah.
Do you think that it is only the pressure that forces the kids to internet or being on Facebook, Instagram, or playing games like PUBG, basically just being addicted to their screens and not being out there socially in the public, talking to their actual friends, actual people around them? Or is it because there is a lot of pressure on them and neither the parents nor the teachers have those kind of resources or time to give the kids, that they find a very easy, lucrative, addictive escape into the world of internet and screens?
Yeah, I mean, that's very, I would say, thought-provoking question that you have asked, Alicia. It is a chicken and egg kind of situation. You see
Yeah.
that since there are no alternatives, and therefore you're going there,
Yeah.
or you are going there under some motivation, and therefore you are getting alienated from the other life
Yes.
experiences. So I would put it like this, that
Hmm.
parents have to find out the alternative pathways for them to spend their time constructively. Okay, so
Yes.
outdoor activities, adventure, togetherness, family being together, you see, and
Yeah.
families sharing their stories, their experiences, their hardships, and then only children will become interested in all that, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if you have your own preferences and you think that the children will grow on their own, or
Yeah.
they have gone to a school and then we have sent them to a private coaching or a tutor, and
Yeah.
therefore they will just grow like that, So
Yeah.
just grow like that used to happen in our time, when we were children,
Yeah.
because there were no distractions, there was nothing called a
Yeah.
peer pressure. So the only alternative we had is go to school and then go and play gilly danda, or
Yeah.
if you were very elite, you go and play football or volleyball, right?
Yeah.
But now, I mean, the children, particularly in the urban settings, they don't have those play opportunities,
Yes.
and they need a lot of support and parental help if they want to pursue any of those. So I
Yes.
think all those things had to come, and therefore to settle this dilemma, my
Yeah.
suggestion is that the parents have to take intentionally and sincerely the responsibility of what are the missing links and what are the gaps in the growing up years of the children, and
Yeah.
they have to make sacrifice in filling those gaps. So
Yeah.
if you have to take the children to a play field, or to sports, or to a music class, I think you have to sacrifice. And I'm not saying that parents are not doing it. A large number of parents are doing it, but in a country like ours, there are large number of parents who are not in a position to do this also, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that is how I'll put it, briefly, in answer to your question, that yes, it is pressure also, but it is
Yes.
absence of alternatives as well.
Yes. I think that's a very well made observation. Um, but I was thinking about this in the context of mental health diseases that are coming up. And we got to know so much from her book.
Mm,
But my
absolutely.
question is that when the same child is in a school environment, you cannot look at someone and know that something is going on with them. It's only after there's a thoughtful interaction with the person, or someone over time, that you realize that this person has changed or this child is changing. As an educationist, what are the challenges that you face that kind of becomes hurdle for you to reach out to children, to whom you can help or you could have helped? Things I want to know, what are the problems schools are facing to
Yeah.
reach out to children?
Great. Thank you very much. I was coming to this part in
Yeah.
extension to your last questions, but you have elaborated it, and that gives me a better opportunity to answer that question. So now I'll come to the role of teachers, right?
Yeah.
So when children are in the school, we emphasize on the role of teachers,
Yeah.
and by and large, not for any bad reason, let us say for good reason, I think the teachers, assume that their role is that of SME, and SME is subject matter expertise. Okay,
Yeah.
so if I am a science teacher and if I'm able to teach science well, I think that's fine, and I have no sense of guilt if I have been
Yeah.
able to teach science well. That's fine.
Yeah.
Full marks to the teacher for that.
Yeah.
But in the context of our discussion, and in
Yeah.
the context of a growing child, and in
Yeah.
the context of equipping the child to cope up with the
Yes.
vagaries of this uncertain life and future, I think the teachers have to extend their role beyond being subject matter experts, right?
Yes.
So, what is
Yes.
that role? Are you able to create some kind of psychological bonding with the children? Okay, so
Yeah.
are you able to reflect with them together? Are you
Yes.
able to sense if what is going on in the life of children. Okay. And then
Yes.
can you have question and answer dialogue? Do you have a strong shoulders, and you give the confidence to the children that they can lean on those shoulders, and they had the confidence to come and tell you that, look, this is what is going on in my life. Okay. And
Yeah.
sometimes peer help is very, very handy here. That
Yeah.
if we have created a culture of that openness and mutual confidence and
Yeah.
trust, then child A will be in a position to come to the teacher and say that the child B, this is what is going wrong in the life of child B. So
Yes.
that is one step. And the third one, of course, is that what are we teaching children for? We are
Yeah.
teaching them to prepare for life. And
Yeah.
as I said, doing well in life, not doing well in the examination due in March or
Yes.
April, right?
Yeah.
So doing well is a sum total of child being well in sum. Okay.
Yeah.
So child being well, what is going on in the life of child? If the child does not have the enabling environment, then the learning environment will suffer and the child will not
Yeah.
be able to concentrate. So the
Yes.
teacher should develop that relationship. So be a
Yes.
reflective teacher, be inquiring teacher, and be a teacher where you can transform the life of those children. Okay. So
Yes.
you be a volunteer
Yeah.
for the teacher, you be an
Yeah.
ambassador for the teacher, and you
Yeah.
be a spokesperson for the teacher, you see, for
Yes.
the children, because children need teachers to become their spokespersons. So
Yeah.
sometimes as a teacher, we encourage them to become an activist to fulfill the personal needs of the children, right?
Yeah.
And you know what happens, I'll give you a very interesting example.
Hmm.
Some of the best properties in the hotel industry, the hospitality industry, what do they do? They are employees of that property, all right, but they are trained to be the voices and ambassadors for their guests.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do their guests require? What are their comfort levels? What are their expectations? I think we have to be the ambassadors for our own children. Okay. So,
Yes.
so, you know, so what makes them happy? What is going wrong with them? Sometimes, we don't come to know about it. The children are being raised by single parents. Children are raised by parents who do not have cordial relationship between them. Some
Yeah.
children are raised by people who are totally unknown to them. Some children are helping their siblings in the house before they come to school.
Yeah.
Some children have their ailing parents, and their lives are in a mess. So I think
Yes.
all those are the situations where I think the teachers collective efficacy, if
Yes.
together, every teacher need not know about every child, but every child must be known by at least one teacher,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That is something that we can create in the schools, and that is
Yes.
very, very helpful. And in answer to your question, this is what we have done, and I can tell you with some confidence that we have succeeded to a
Yeah.
great extent in reaching out to the children and finding out what is wrong with their personal lives.
That's great. I think if we create a model where teachers can reach out to children and be more than subject matter experts,
Yes,
definitely children will benefit from that situation.
absolutely.
I'll come back to a point that you made in your earlier answers, and you talked about positive versus plenty.
Mm,
Uh, it was also one thing that struck me while I was reading the book, because Dr.
mm,
Malvika writes that there are a lot of cases where children are over-diagnosed of ADHD, where children do not
mm,
actually have ADHD, but mental health practitioners, unfortunately, term the usual excitement that a child has as ADHD. Versus when you actually go and see on the ground, sometimes children really need help, but they don't get it. How do you,
yes.
where do you put these two polar opposites of society, and how do you make sense of it? Because I couldn't.
No, I will tell you. First of all, let me give this caveat and clarification that I have absolute faith in the medical sciences and in the expertise of practitioners. and the advices and prescriptions that they give. So that is absolutely there in place. But let me tell
Yes.
you what you are referring to. 10 years, 12 years ago, when this ADHD came into being, in the sense that it became very popular or famous or infamous, whatever the suitable word is, and the children who had little bit of the hyperaction in the classroom, they were quote unquote naughty children, or
Yeah.
children who would jump from one place to another, not manageable by the teachers, or they were showing very visible signs of being aggressive or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
then we came to know, very disturbingly, that they were all being branded as ADHD children, right?
Yeah.
And then we were noticing that whenever they go to for some help, they were prescribed some medicine. Okay.
Yes.
Now and then the parents would come and tell us that, look, this is what has happened, and those medicines are largely sedative in nature, and,
Yes.
and 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 largely to calm down the children. Okay.
Yeah.
But that was also resulting in children becoming very inclusive, becoming introvert, becoming sleepy, lazy, loss of energy, vigor, I mean, all those side effect symptoms were also coming. And
Yes.
that was the time when I started reflecting, that can we do something at our own level, before reaching to a conclusion that this
Yeah.
particular child needs medical help,
Yes.
right? And I
Yes.
think this strategy helped. And this strategy helped. And I'm talking
Yeah.
of the period between 2000 to 2010. And then we found that the spiking up of several cases, branded as cases of ADHD, they
Yeah.
declined suddenly. They declined suddenly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which I do not have clinical data or something to submit here. But all I can tell you is that this happened because parents and teachers, both of them, they took it upon themselves that we will work with the children, and we will find out what are the reasons of aggression and what are
Yeah.
the reasons of disengagement of the child from learning or from
Yes.
classroom activity, and
Yes.
and little bit of human intervention in these situations, and
Yeah.
engaging children in sports, engaging them in a creative work, giving them positions of responsibility. I think those things were very, very efficacious in these
Yes.
situations.
Yes. Um, there was a lot to talk about actually. I wanted to talk about advertising and internet addiction, but that is now because Dr. Malvika Kapur could not make it. We will restrict it to some other portion.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you this, that 20, 30 years ago, schools were a place where there was no screen. And when I say screen, I just don't mean mobiles or smart, screens or things like that. I also mean that there was no TV because children
Yeah.
already had TV at their home. But now the education sector is changing in a sense that if you do not have smart screens, you are not keeping up with the competition and the demands of the parents. They want them, but you know let's say that it's a good thing that at least in the school campus the screens are used for productive purposes, just for studies, whereas when they go home there is all those games and lucrative stuff waiting for children to do. How do you see this shift where a school from becoming a place where a child was encouraged to be more social, encouraged to be more talkative, to, the child had to eventually open up because no one can stay alone and they would eventually open up, to now becoming this person who's sitting in a class and jotting down notes not from a teacher maybe but from a smart screen? How do you see that difference? Do you think that it contributes further to mental health? Because it can't go away. Let's say that. Because it cannot go away. It is here to stay. Smart screens, smart education is here to stay. How do you just see this whole scenario where we are putting our children?
Yeah, Alicia, I think I'm little reflective and philosophical on this, but let me put it like this: that we have to prepare our children for future, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is what the parents and schools want.
yeah,
Now, And the future is becoming very volatile, very
Yeah.
fluid, you know. And the earlier in our time we could predict that what
Yes.
will be the nature of work for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Now the
Yes.
nature of work is shifting every second year or third year or 5 years or whatever it is.
Yes.
So the world over, I mean, the researches and surveys and the focus group and CEOs being interviewed, educationists being interviewed, and what the result is coming is astonishing in two or three ways. So as I said in the beginning of our show, that we think that high percentile is a very, very important thing. But no, I mean, for the past 10, 15 years, we have got tons and tons of data suggesting that a high percentage of marks or technical qualification is not sufficient, not even to get a job, forget about
Yes.
doing well in a job, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so I'm coming back to the original question of purpose of schooling or purpose of education. So purpose of education is flourishing of the human body, a human person
Yes.
or of individual. And that flourishing has got two very distinct compartments. One, of
Yes.
course, is the cognitive, but the second one is character, or what we call
Yes.
personality. Okay. So
Yes.
character building and intellectual building or cognitive building, both of them come together, they
Yeah.
make a wholesome person. And
Yeah.
therefore we have to prepare our children for that. Now I'll
Yes.
give you a very two very quick references. McKinsey and Company, one of the foremost companies, was doing a lot of research on the future of work and all that. They have come out with a data that only 10 years from now, if you compare it with the 5 years back, the future of work is suggesting that most of the jobs will fall under higher cognitive skills, socio-emotional skills, and technological skills, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
higher cognitive skills, can you think? Can
Yeah.
you, handle uh, complex data with confidence and with efficiency, right?
Yes.
Can you work together? Can you value each other's work? Can you work in an environment where the goal is shared, the vision is shared, and you don't expect any individual credit? It is always
Yeah.
be a shared credit. I mean, and then what are your value systems? What are your relationships? How do you manage relations?
Yes.
How do you manage diversity?
Yeah.
How do you find yourself in an inclusive environment? I think
Yes.
those are the things which are determined how socio emotionally advanced and matured you are, and
Yeah.
how higher you are in the cognitive skills of creativity and analysis and synthesis and imagination and things like that. And then comes the technological skills. Now when we talk of technological skills, it doesn't mean that everybody in this world will become a technology expert. But
Yeah.
what is also true is that all of us will have to know how to navigate in a digital world. So digital
Yes.
literacy is important, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to manage data, we have to manage our affairs. Our most of our life has already become, and it will become even more digitized. So
Yes.
that kind of digital literacy, or what we call the basic digital hygiene, is
Yeah.
very, very important. But the socio-emotional skills and higher order cognitive skills will become even more important than technological skills, because they are
Yeah.
the building blocks and supportive blocks even for
Yes.
technological skills. We have to
Yes.
work in a multidisciplinary and multicultural environment. So I think
Yes.
if that is the reason, I think we have to give even more emphasis on developing those health and well-being, including socio-emotional and mental health.
Yes. Yeah, you have given me a lot to think about.
Mm.
Okay, my final question to you is, sir, digital demon or demigod? What is
Yeah,
your take?
yeah. So let me tell you, before I answer this question, which is very interesting, and you see my background. It is not
Yes.
very visible, but this background, you see those circles. These are the global goals
Yeah.
2030.
Yeah.
If you can make it out, and these are the
Okay.
goals for the humanity. These are the
Okay.
goals for the 8 billion people on the earth, not only for a cross section of people or a section of people or something like that.
Yeah.
And what are these goals? These goals are that nobody should remain hungry, nobody should remain poor, nobody should remain unhealthy, nobody should suffer from clean water, nobody should suffer from clean energy. There should be equality of economic opportunity, equality of gender. The climate changes must be tackled. Our
Yeah.
institutions must be very strong. Everybody should have decent work and employment opportunity, and all of
Yeah.
us should work together, right? I mean, these
Yes.
are the visions and goals. Now
Yes.
imagine the digital demon, if we say, then it only means that we have to understand that technology and science, the beauty of science and technology is that it opens the door to the heaven, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with science and technology is that the same key also opens the door to hell, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the key is the same, but the
Yes.
question is, key does not have a value of its own. The
Yeah.
value to the key is provided by the human beings.
Yes.
And therefore, we are emphasizing upon what kind of human beings we are producing.
Yeah.
And can that key be an enabler, a protector, a transformative instrument rather than creating hell and hellish things around us? Okay.
Yes.
And therefore, the answer to your question lies between this. I think it is
Yes.
it is the same DNA, which
Yeah.
will make it demon, and it will also make it what we call demi God. Okay.
Yes.
But let me tell you that technology has the potential to solve all these problems which you see behind me, right? And
Yes.
and and technology should be uh, deployed, you know, to find solutions to human problems. And
Yes.
therefore, if we repurpose technology,
Yes.
then I think we will be taming technology for our use. But if we
Yes.
do not repurpose it, technology will overpower us, and we will become
Yes.
slaves to technology.
Yes. Sir, as a true educationist, you have rounded off your answer with the perfect example, and I must thank you for it. It has made it
Thank,
easier for our listeners, viewers, audience members, parents, some of them, to understand where to draw the lines, maybe. Thank you
thank
so
you,
much for
thank
coming.
you, Alicia. Thank you very much. It's been very nice, engaging conversation with you. I really loved being on your show, and thank you very
And
much once again.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir, for coming. And I apologize that Malvika ma'am could
No,
not make it, but some other
no
day we
problem.
will
Though I
definitely
have
have this.
missed her presence, and
Yes,
I have also missed a lot of learning that would have come and
yes,
accrued to us with her presence. But
yes,
that is what it is. We have to
yes.
accept it.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for coming, for sharing your valuable opinions with us, for giving me your take of the digital divides and the media. Thank you so much. We will be
Thank
back
you.
another Saturday on the same
Thank
time.
you. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much,
Thank you.
sir.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Bye bye.